Welcome to Listen Up, the Bishop Bible Podcast. I'm Samuel. Today we're in Proverbs chapter 24. The first verses that stood out to me are verses 3 and 4, which say, "Through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches." What stood out to me in these verses are a couple of things. First off is there's this concept of building a house. I think that that's a little bit of a metaphor. I think that there is an actual literal sense in which wisdom is built, through wisdom, a house is built, right? And if you're walking in a wise way, you are moving in the direction where home ownership is a potential for you. So there's like that aspect of it, as well as like it takes a lot of wisdom to build a house. It takes less wisdom to buy a house. It takes more wisdom to build a house well. Actually, you know what? That just doesn't make any sense. But it's hard to build a house. That's what I'm trying to say. And, you got to be wise about the location of your house, the terrain that your house is being built on, the style of house that you want to build. There's so many factors and things to consider. And when you're walking in wisdom, the house can be built well. But I think more of what it's talking about is also this metaphor of your life. So our house is a little bit more than just the place that we live. It's also our family, and it's our vocations, it's our way of life. And so when we are working through wisdom to build up our life and our family, then that is going to be a work that's well established, and it's going to be full of joy and rewards and blessings. The same thing is true in a physical sense, of course. When we're walking in wisdom, a big part of that is financial wisdom. And so walking in financial wisdom means that you are able to have and enjoy things that a lot of other people are not able to have and enjoy. They may have them, but they may also regret having them, and there may be a burden associated with them of debt or whatever other thing. So when we're walking in wisdom, we're walking in a way that A, builds, and B, builds well. And that is really what we want to do. The other thing that stood out to me from this is the aspect of a process. So when you're building a house, it's not something that you can do in a day. It is... If you were going to do it in a day, you would need a whole team and a TV crew and all kinds of different things like that. But typically, houses are not built in a day. It is really rare to hear of a house that's built in 3 months. It's more common for a house to be built in 9 months. So it's a process. It's something that has to be done step by step. There's an A point that has to come before a B point, all the way through until you get to the end of your project. And so it takes time, and it's something that has to be established step by step. The better you do each process of a home build, the easier it becomes to finish out your project well and have a really high quality home. If your foundation isn't level, if it's not laid out to the correct dimensions that the rest of your house is designed for, it is going to cause some serious errors when it comes to the building of your home. Likewise, if your walls aren't straight, they're crooked, they're not squared to each other, then that's going to cause serious problems later on, especially when you start to get into like drywall and finish trim and other things like that. If your electrical plan is not laid out well, then you're going to have rooms where you have to run extension cords and outlet strips and all of this other kind of stuff, right? So the better that we do each step, the more that we're able to walk in wisdom and think ahead. Just overall, the quality of what we do will dramatically increase. And we have to be committed to the process, right? There's no quick way to gain wisdom. There's no quick way to build a really solid, wonderful life. It takes a lot of continual effort to do that. Verse 5 and 6 say, "A wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. For by wise counsel you will wage your own war, and in the multitude of counselors there is safety." We've covered this topic many times. The reality is you are unwise if you don't have counsel and you don't seek counsel and you don't submit yourself to the wise counsel of others. Not all counsel is the same. Not all criticism is the same. So we do need to have a filter and a discerning eye towards who we want to listen to and who we're willing to receive counsel from. But generally speaking, it should be the people that you want to be like in the next 10 to 20 years. Those are the people that are going to be able to actually speak from life experience and from the Word of God into your life and help you to grow to the place that they are today. So those are the people that you want to have as your counsel. But what I like about this verse in particular is the way that it describes this is a wise man is strong and a wise man increases strength. There is this reality that our capacity increases when we're walking in wisdom and our capacity decreases when we're walking in sin. I think a very simple illustration of this is that we all know the physically healthy thing to do is to get 8 hours of sleep every night. And there's even more principles to sleep. Based on your circadian rhythms, there's an optimal time to go to bed and an optimal time to wake up. It's not always possible to live within those constraints because sometimes our school schedule makes it so that we have to get up earlier than we would have gotten up, or sometimes our job can make it so that we have to go to bed later than we were going to go to bed. But typically speaking, if you are going to bed before midnight, your body is able to purge and cleanse the toxins that are in it, and you are going to live longer and be healthier. So getting enough sleep lets you live longer and be healthier, and it helps you de-stress. And going to sleep at the right time also does the same thing. And then there's a lot to be said for quality of sleep, and different things with screens. Don't look at screens right before you're going to go to bed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we're walking in wisdom, it has this net positive effect on our physical health. And you have so much more energy throughout your day if you are taking care of having good sleep hygiene, basically. When you don't do that and you're staying up until 2 or 3 a.m. every day, but you still have to get up at 9 o'clock to be able to barely slide into work on time, you are dragging throughout the day. You have to drink so much more caffeine than you should. You pump energy drinks into your body. Basically, what you're doing is you are shortening your lifespan by doing that, but you're also hindering your productivity and your creativity because your mind is in a state of fog because of your lack of sleep and your lack of ability of taking care of yourself. So as we walk in wisdom, it actually increases our strength and it increases our capacity so that when we get counsel, we're able to follow through on those plans and actually see them work out to fruition. Verse 10 says, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." So continuing in this theme of strength, right? Here is the test of your strength is, does it give out when you need it the most? And if the answer is yes, that is not the end of the world, but it should be a wake-up call. And it should be something that, causes you to say, hey, I need to change the way that I'm living my life. Trials come to all of us. And the point of the trial is so that our character would be shown and be proven. And if we pass the trial, awesome, praise the Lord. And if we fail the trial, then that's when we evaluate and we think through, how could I have succeeded? What could I have done 6 months ago that would have changed the outcome of this trial? Because either my character would have been improved, my physical health would have been improved, whatever it is, and then start to put those practices in place today. And then hopefully the next time that you face a trial, you will not faint in the day of trial. Verse 11 and 12. "Deliver those who are drawn towards death and hold back those stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, surely he did not know this, or surely we did not know this. Does not he who weighs the hearts consider it? He who keeps your soul, does he not know it? And will he not render to each man according to his deeds?" I'm going to read it again because this is a really important thing for us to understand. There's responsibilities that come with being human. And the Lord has expectations on this. And one of those expectations is that we do good. It's not enough to just avoid evil. You have to practice good. So listen to this. This is how we practice good, and a really important thing. Deliver those who are drawn towards death, and hold back those stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, surely we did not know this, does not he who weighs the hearts consider it? He who keeps your soul, does he not know it? And will he not render to each man according to his deeds? Who's it talking about? Who are the people that are drawn towards death? It's talking about innocent people that are drawn towards death. Genocides are like a prime example of this, right? It's not because people have done something wrong that they're being killed. It's because they're from a specific ethnicity that they're being targeted and killed. That's evil and wrong every single time. And also, it could be the poor, or it could be the rich, or I think about the French Revolution, right? The French Revolution was this in action. The innocent being killed simply for the gratification of humanism. And so hold those people back. Like, stand in the breach, stand in the gap, and do that. Because you can't say like, oh, I didn't know. We are aware. We just don't care. And that is sin for us. We should care, and we should be involved to the extent that our calling and skills allow us to be. There is this reality where, again, our strength is limited and our capacity is limited. You can't do 1,000 things at the same time. You have to have focus, and you have to be able to discern like what is within my capacity to do and be effective in. But here's one that I think is a real issue that we can stand for today in whatever capacity we can, that aligns exactly with this verse. In our country, it is legal to kill babies as long as they are not born yet. And depending on the state that you live in, that is more or less true. And what we know about people is that they are a person from the moment of conception, according to as much as you can figure out as far as the scientific minutia goes from Scripture. And genetically, that is also true. When somebody is conceived, they have 100% of their genetics set. Their genetic makeup is written essentially in that moment. And so that begins the journey of that unique life. And then within 6 weeks, that person already has a heartbeat, and their brain has activity shortly after that. It's not like they go from a blob to a fish, to a dog, to a person. They are always human. Genetically, they're human, and they're just growing in capacity from that point. They get fingers and toes so early. They get eyes and ears and their nose and their mouth so early on. We're talking like before the end of the first trimester. And so there is no way to say that that person is not a person. And and hold to Scripture and be somebody that, I don't know. I've had so many arguments with people about abortion, and the main pushbacks that I get are that it's the mother's body, so she should get to choose what she wants to do with it. And the problem is that while I generally agree with that principle to an extent, the reality is that it's a whole nother human inside of the mom. And that human is either human and therefore has the same rights and privileges that all other humans should have, like we shouldn't be allowed to be murdered for the convenience of another person. Even if we are a burden on that other person, that does not give them the right to murder us. So either that's true for all humans, or we have set a society that kills the innocent, right? So there's that as an argument. There's also the argument of viability that I've run across quite often, which is essentially saying that, well, when the baby is able to sustain their own life outside of the womb, then they should be protected and considered human. And that argument breaks down really fast for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. One of those reasons is because the viable age continues to decrease as our technological levels increase. 100 years ago, it would have been impossible for a baby at 22 weeks gestation to be born and live. But now that is possible. And not only possible, it happens pretty regularly. So that is a huge advance in technology that has essentially lowered the threshold on quote unquote viability. The other thing too is viability is such a misnomer because it's like this general term, but there's no way to really define what that means. So a baby cannot survive on their own. If you took a baby that made it all 9 months and was born naturally and then left them outside, they would die. There's no way that baby is going to be able to sustain themselves. So then it's okay, well, they have to be viable in a loving home. So if their parents love them, and they're able to survive, then that means that they count as a human. Do you see how subjective that argument is? And then, why is that fine, but 21 weeks isn't fine? And there's no way to nail this down. But when you really think about the word viability and you put that into the context of does it make a human valuable enough to protect from murder, right? Then I would just ask, who actually is viable? Because it's not a 1-year-old. They're not viable either. There's no way that a 1-year-old can survive on their own. They will die. You leave a 1-year-old outside, it is just a matter of time until they die. And I think that that's also true of most 10-year-olds. The number of 10-year-olds that you could just leave outside and they would be able to find food on their own, shelter on their own, start a fire on their own, and be able to live is basically zero. So who's viable? And, so then you have to throw all of these stipulations about what viable means, which shows you that it's a subjective standard. It is not actually an objective standard that we should be living our lives based on and making a decision about whether or not people should be murdered over. You can't, that's so wrong. A subjective standard being used to determine whether or not somebody should be murdered, right? So the real issue usually comes down to whether or not the baby actually counts as a real human being or not, which again falls into this really kind of a evil argument and an evil discussion of well, is a baby's life actually important? And to even ask that question, man, it's wow, where have we gone? So what our society does is it sugarcoats this whole argument, right? So our society says, well, it's a fetus. Who knows what the word fetus means? It sounds like the scientific term that means something other than a human baby. But the word fetus is, as far as I understand, a Latin word that actually means it's your kin, your family. And so a fetus is your family. It is a human baby. It's your baby. And then we try to say things like, oh, it's just cells, they don't really feel anything. The right of their mother is important. This is gonna, help the mother. And we make all of these sugar-coated arguments around the fact that it's actually just murder. So I've said this every single time that I've talked about abortion because I think abortion is a bane on our society and it should have never ever been legalized in the first place. And legalizing it has actually brought the death of, think about it, over 60 million people in the United States. That is essentially a genocide. And so there are a lot of people that raise their voices and do what they can to stop it. But the fact that there are so many people that support killing 60 million of our own people for the sake of financial gain and convenience and comfort is abhorrent. It is so unthinkable and disgusting. And so it is necessary. This is something that the Bible teaches us. It is necessary that we stand up for what is good and that we actually cry out and say, hey, stop the slaughter. Like, don't let this continue. It makes what the Nazis did look like nothing, because the number of people that the Nazis killed compared to the number of people that America has killed in our pursuit of an ideal society it's not even close. The numbers, the scale is crazy. So, man, when you look at it like that, you're like, holy cow, why would we do that? But, again, the problem is that people don't actually believe that a baby is a human. And they don't believe that a baby is a baby as long as it's in the mother's womb, because our society wants to justify this act of evil and murder. So it's incumbent on us as Christians to be able to argue this point articulately and well, which hopefully I have done to the best of my ability in this moment. And secondly, it's really important for us to walk in compassion, because I don't think a ton of the people that have an abortion understand that they are murdering somebody. I think most of them have believed a lie that their child in their body is not actually a child. And so when they follow through with that decision and they kill their child, that is a tragedy. It is a tragedy, and it is so sad. And we should weep with those people instead of screaming at them or trying to obliterate them or accusing them of, just inherent evil. I would say that the people that know it's a baby and they choose to do it anyway, and not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, because there are some people that do that. They abort child after child of their own. Those people have sold themselves to evil, right? But for so many moms, they are deceived and tricked, and they don't know what they have done. And so we need to be forgiving, right? But we also need to stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Secondly, I would say is that the church needs to do a far better job of reaching those moms and reaching those dads and reaching our society and offering them a better way and being involved in our neighbors' lives, right? Because chances are somebody that lives on your street has had an abortion. And, do you actually even know your neighbor well enough that if they were considering having an abortion, you would be able to speak into their life? We need to know our neighbors. We need to reach them with the love of Jesus. We need to show them that there's a better way to live instead of just standing in condemnation, right? It's a both thing. We need to stand up for the life of the unborn, but we also need to reach the lost who are alive. Verse 15 and 16 say, "Do not lie in wait, O wicked man, against the dwelling of the righteous. Do not plunder his resting place. For a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again, but the wicked shall fall by calamity." This is the encouragement to me out of this verse, is that, you know, life may not go your way, but if you're walking with the Lord, you will rise again. The Lord will raise you up. And so there's a warning against the wicked, right? Obviously, of like, hey, if you're crossing these lines, if you're walking contrary to the fear of the Lord, you should stop doing that, because when your judgment comes, it's going to be final. And you may fight against the righteous, and you may have a couple of wins over them, but they're going to rise again, and they're going to rise again, and they're going to rise again. And when it's your time to fall, you are going to fall without any help, without any salvation, without any redemption, and it's just going to be over for you. So that's a warning, right? Verse 17 and 18 say, "Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it, and it displeases him, and he turns away his wrath from him." This is part of the reason why vengeance is the Lord's, and he will repay, and we just need to let that be the Lord's, right? Our portion is to forgive. And when we forgive people, even the people that have wronged us and grievously wronged us, it sets us free from the bondage of unforgiveness, and it sets our hearts in the right place. And here's the thing, right? Is that forgiving somebody doesn't mean that you excuse what they've done. There is this forgiveness, like real forgiveness, where you do not hold that thing against that person anymore. But that doesn't mean that you save them from the consequences of their actions necessarily. That may be what the Lord wants you to do, but that goes beyond the strict limitations of forgiveness, or the strict definition of forgiveness. So we need to forgive our enemies, and if we do forgive our enemies, then you won't be tempted to gloat over them when they fall. Secondly, is that we're actually supposed to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. And that means wishing them good, right? And that is what pleases the Lord's heart, because the Lord sends rain on the just and the unjust. He takes care of everybody, and provides everybody with opportunities for good and good itself. So our place is to be like the Lord and to be peacemakers. And when the Lord judges somebody, that's not the time to gloat over them. We can praise the Lord because he is just, but we shouldn't gloat over the person in their calamity. 21 says, "My son, fear the Lord and the king. Do not associate with those given to change, for their calamity will rise suddenly, and who knows the ruin those two can bring." It's easy to be caught up in fads, and there's political fads, and there are spiritual fads, and there are physical fads, and there's fashion trends and all of this other kind of stuff, right? It's really easy to just get swept up in change for the sake of change, in progress for the sake of progress, even if that progress is actually going backwards, right? Change often is just labeled as progress, but it's not always good change. And so the warning is, don't just change for the sake of change. Instead, hold to the ways that are good and true. Because if you are sinning against the Lord and you're sinning against the King, then you are going to reap the consequences of that sin. So save yourself the trouble, right? Just walk in the ancient, proven, wise ways. Verse 27 says, "Prepare your outside work, make it fit for yourself in the field, and afterward build your home." We in our society live for instant gratification. We want our toys, and we want them now. We want our wine, and we want it now. We want our fancy furniture. We want our art. We want our comfort. We want our fame. We want all of these things. But we're not willing to put in the hard work that's necessary in order to actually receive those things. And so what we often do is we just pay for it with somebody else's money. We borrow that money at an interest rate so that we can have comfort now and today. But that is not the path of wisdom. The path of wisdom is to prepare your outside work and make it fit for yourself in the field, and then build your house. Another way to say that is you need to establish your vocation before you think about your comfort. Another way to say it too is before you get married, you should have, you should have a decent income, right? Should you be rich? No, not necessarily. But what you should have is stability, right? You want to bring somebody into a stable situation instead of, you are getting fired every other month from your new job and you can only hold down part-time jobs or whatever other thing. Like, actually establish yourself and have a path forward for the future, and then bring somebody else into that equation. Establish yourself, be walking in wisdom, have a solid vocation, and then it's okay to buy like a $5,000 car. But don't buy a $50,000 car and have these crazy huge payments when you don't even have a career that can actually pay for that in a reasonable amount of time. It's not wise. Verse 30 through 34 says, I went by the field of the lazy man and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. Talked about laziness a lot because it is one of the opposing what's that? Vices. The vices. It's one of the opposing vices to the virtue of wisdom. And, it just takes a little bit. It takes a little bit of laziness here and a little bit of laziness there and a little bit of laziness here and a little bit of laziness there before our lives actually just settle into a pattern of lethargy and irresponsibility and self-destruction and self-harm. So, you might just say like, I just need to take a break now. And again, rest is good if we do it well, right? But when we are indulging in comfort and we're indulging in pleasure, then what it often does is just destroy our own livelihood, destroy our own souls. It undermines all of our efforts in life. So be a diligent person. As we talked about before, don't be a workaholic, right? But be a diligent person and be somebody who is building. Be a builder. Be a builder, because that is the path of wisdom. Have a great night.